Good evening. My name is Warren Colbert. I am Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art. On behalf of the museum and its Board of Trustees, I would like to welcome you to the historic Asolo Theater and the honoring of John Sims. This remarkable man and conceptual artist was in residence at the Ringling Museum from 2020 through 2022. During that time, it was an honor for the museum and its staff to work with John on numerous projects, creating public programs, including a full-length premiere performance, a flag viewing, and a listening session right in this theater, and a video exhibition of one of his short films in the museum's Manda Gallery. Because of the national and international impact of John's body of work and social practice, and because of the importance of him being an artist based here in Sarasota, Florida, the museum acquired one of John's pieces last fall titled From the Chambers. It's fitting that we will share this work in a focused exhibition consisting of a sculpture and a video poem during the months of May through July 2023, allowing the public to experience one of John's most recent cross-disciplinary creations and allowing us, the Ringling Museum, to continue to raise awareness of this artist's significant life and work. I thank you all for coming together today in celebration of John Sims. Thank you.
In honor of John and his tireless efforts towards restorative and social justice, we wish to acknowledge that we currently sit on the traditional homelands and territories of the Seminole, as well as other historical groups, including the Calusa and Tocobaga. Today, the state of Florida is home to the Seminole, Miccosukee, Muskogee, and Choctaw, and to individuals of many other Native groups. We recognize the historical and continuing impacts of colonization on Indigenous communities, their resilience in the face of colonial and state-sponsored violence, and fully support Indigenous sovereignty. We will work to be more accountable to the needs of American Indian and Indigenous peoples. Secondly, we would like to acknowledge the state of Florida's complicated history with slavery and anti-Black racism. While a Spanish territory, the land that is now Florida was both a site of enslavement, but also a haven for escaped slaves from the north. The former maroon site of Angola, situated just north of us on the Manatee River, reflects a deep history of anti-slavery resistance in Florida. However, under the control of the British and eventually the United States, Florida was a slave state. On the eve of the Civil War, enslaved African Americans accounted for 44% of Florida's population. Florida seceded from the Union in 1861, confirming the state's commitment to maintaining the horrific institution of slavery. After the end of the Civil War, Reconstruction and Jim Crow in Florida were defined by anti-Black racism and violence. The legacies of these histories continue to sustain systemic inequalities and oppression. Today, we acknowledge these histories to honor John's legacy in activism and social justice and his efforts to actively confront the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism, slavery, and anti-Black racism. In his memory, we will continue to challenge and dismantle the systems produced, created, and recreated by white supremacist ideology. Thank you, John.
Good evening. Kyle Batty, City Commissioner of District 1, the great city of Sarasota, and the mayor, again, of this great city of Sarasota. I don't come here with a speech that's written, but one from the heart. John Sims, a friend of mine, a friend of all of yours, would be proud of this gathering here today. Be proud of the fact that you all took the time to come here and acknowledge his being. John was not just an artist, not just a mathematician, not just an activist, but more importantly, humanitarian. We're here because of his humanity. We're here because of what he gave each and every one of us, because his life in itself was a symphony of art. And life is art, and art is life, right? This great human being touched each and every one of us here and abroad. He gave much of himself, much of his knowledge, and he imparted that upon me in the conversations that we constantly have, whether it be just the two of us or some symposium somewhere with his great aloof way of thinking. God, yo, check this out, man, check this out. I'd be like, what's up, Sims? You know. But there are many things that I'll remember about my friend, a mentor, and a brother. But I come here to you on behalf of the city of Sarasota, the leadership of our great city, which represents what John was all about, and that was diversity. I myself, an African-American mayor, a city manager from Trinidad, a former mayor from an immigrant from Dominican Republic, a city auditor and clerk, African-American female, a number of Caucasians that serve with us as well. And our police chief, Rex Troche, is from Puerto Rico. So we represent a rainbow of life. It's John Sims. So on behalf of our city commission, myself, the Commissioner Jen Ahern Koch, Commissioner Eric Arroyo, Commissioner Debbie Trice, and our Vice Mayor Liz Alpert, I'd like to give and bestow upon John Sims posthumously the City of Sarasota Mayor's citation. Whereas John Sims, the creative director of Halo Arts Project, broke ground in the area of math, art, and endeavored to shine a light on visual artists and inspire them through the salon at his Sarasota Art Studio. And whereas John uplifted not just this community, but his country and the world through conceptual art, music, writings, and activism in the realm of social justice, creating a legacy of demands for change. And whereas by choosing to make this great city his home, John became a son of Sarasota and enriched our community through his ideas, creations, and engagement. And whereas John's words have appeared in publications around the world, and his brilliant voice will live on, generating a powerful impact within the arts community. Now, therefore, I, Kyle Batty, Mayor of this great city of Sarasota, Florida, and on behalf of the great citizens of our great community, take great pride in recognizing February 13th is 2023 John Sims Day. But I have to take it one step further and do my friend great justice, because what is it? The square root of love. That's what John was all about. And he came to me when he wanted to do that, so I set him up with a curator for wine, and then someone else for a venue in which to do it. But just because he was a great human being, a great humanitarian, and he touched us with his humanity, and that's what this is all about. So beyond my words, I'd like to bestow upon him as well the key to our great city. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Renee James Gilmore, and I have the great pleasure of calling John Sims my friend, whether he sits in this audience with us tonight or smiles upon us from the heavens, he remains my friend. I'd like to introduce now Nate Jacobs. I'm going to be your MC for the evening, such that it is. And Nate, if you would mind coming up, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. John Sims, genius, colleague, and friend. He was a mentor of mine. He was forever patting me on the back for West Coast Black Theater Troupe and having a black theater institution in a city like Sarasota. And I was always wowed by what he was doing. When he would share what he was doing, you doing that? Your thing in New York? You doing? But he was so about, man, you doing it, man. So when I thought about what song I should share tonight, I thought about John, a light in this world, and was always a light, illuminating and sharing what he felt was his message, what his art was, and he had so much passion and conviction, just a total inspiration to me, and my life is blessed because the paths cross where I met John Sims. So, the song that I asked John, what should I sing? Like he said, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. All right. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh yes, God gave me a light, and I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, God gave me a light, and I'm gonna let it shine. Well, God gave me a light, I'm gonna let it shine. I'll let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And it wasn't just here in Florida. He said, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, everywhere I go, yes, I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let my light shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Yes, yes, God gave me a light, and I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, God gave me a light, gave me a message, and I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, I'm won't waste one day, one moment, 1 hour. I said I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. We love you, John.
Hello, everyone. I once read that an older sibling is there to help you, to be confident when you're timid, to be strong when you're weak, and to be fearless when you're scared. John was all of that for me. In the early 90s, I was going to college part-time and was taking college algebra and wasn't doing very well. Actually, I was failing. And one day, the phone rang, and actually it was the day that I had to go take my final, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. And John called. He called to speak to my mother, and my mother wasn't there. And I told him my situation, and John, he listened, and he said, Angie, don't worry, I got you. And he did. He had my back. So we went over the practice test, because I had a practice test, and he went over every problem, and he told me and explained to me every problem. And when I went to school that day, I remember what my brother told me, and I got 100 on my final. And that was the only way I passed the class, so thank you. And then another time, he was there for me when my mother passed away. He knew I was having a hard time. But he called me, and he supported me, and he checked up on me to make sure I was okay, even though I know he was having a hard time too. He put me first, and I love him for that. And that brought us together, closer, you know. John was amazing to me. And you know, the pain of his death won't go away. It's a process. But just knowing the love that he had for me, and when my mom passed away, he showed me how much he cared. It would carry me through just the memory of him. I love my brother, and I'll miss him. And thank you guys for coming and supporting him. Thank you.
That was my beautiful sister. Greetings from Detroit, Michigan, home where me and my brother, my sister were born. I'm so proud to have Mr. and Mrs. Archer here representing. It's a beautiful thing. First, I want to say thank you, Sarasota, and the art community here for having my brother, John, for loving him and providing him with a space to grow and flourish and create. And as I understand, it may not have always been beautiful, but things did blossom. So I appreciate you for that. And even the love that came pouring out of the city when I got that fateful call, I was touched and reminded why John loved this place so much. And the people here, you, the Ringling, Charlene Hunter, God, Ron, Gail, Fulton Ross, Kaylee Elise Thompson and her husband Larry, Brick Rule, Jackie at the Halo Arts Project, Ed and Claudia, who without I wouldn't have been able to see the Super Bowl last night. I appreciate that. So many of you who stopped by the house to say that you love John. This is a special place. I wish I knew all your names. I wish I could give you all a hug. I know that's just how love is. Sometimes it's too big to put your arms around. Yeah. And that's why we dig deep into the roots that's buried in ourselves. But what can I say about John? I love my brother. We had our moments when we laughed from the belly, and moments when we disagreed, when nothing was funny. But I loved him. Right? There's a lot to say about that guy. But there are three qualities that I most respect about him, and that's his vision, his critical eye, and his audacity. And there are other qualities, of course, but these stand out. I respect his vision. He was fascinated with the possibilities, what could be, the lure of the idea. He lived in the world of ideas as he drug those into reality. Second, I respect his critical eye, his ability to engage in an idea, an object, or a situation from various angles and perspectives. You could see the process in his face and his eyes. He would read the text, not just books, but rooms and people and situations. And he read with focused intention and the will to understand, and in many cases, to make change. Third, I respect his audacity, his ability to manifest, to drag even an idea and a vision through that critical process and transform it into an impressive new reality. Let me give you an example. And if my voice cracks, just know that's the love that's seeping through, because it's there and it's deep. As a kid, John once decided that we would build a clubhouse. Where he got that notion, I don't know, maybe the Birdie Bunch, I don't know. But one day he began to dig out a section of my mother's backyard right behind the big tree in the back. And I asked him, what are you doing? And he said he was laying the foundation for his clubhouse. Of course, so you have to have a foundation for a clubhouse, especially one of this magnitude. Yes. My mother did not share that vision and effectively she shut that project down. But if you go behind that tree in our backyard today, you will see the impression that John made on the earth with that project. Eventually, we built that clubhouse in a different place in the backyard. And I say we because John had recruited the block, a team of neighborhood workers to hammer that vision into reality. He had a plan. John figured that if he placed doors scavenged from the vacant houses and abandoned buildings, and place them on their side in such a way we could create a labyrinth of rooms that would rival the best of any clubhouse. You couldn't stand very much in a clubhouse, but you could chill. Yes. We found rugs and pieces of carpet to line the floor. John reinforced the roof with discarded green rods once used to support the once beautiful awnings that covered the porches of family homes on the block. Using those rods, he somehow tethered the structure to the fence lining my mother's backyard, creating stability. We scavenged shingles for the roof. The landlord next door was putting a new roof on the house, and John decided that the clubhouse needed a shingle roof too. He used discarded shingles. He even fashioned a fireplace out of bricks and mud and stuck a piece of old gutter in the roof as a chimney. And I remember the process, the critical thoughts. Okay, let's do this. Nah, let's change that. What if we did this? No, that ain't right. And why did you do that? You know, the process, the often frustrating process. Anyway, in the end, the clubhouse was impressive and sturdy. The vision stood as a reality. This was the audacity of John. Someone later tried to destroy that clubhouse and the house sustained some damage, but it did not fall. My mother and Miss Cotton, our next door neighbor, condemned the structure. They didn't trust the chimney. They didn't appreciate what we were doing to their fence. They didn't want to know, and they wanted to know where we got those doors. But perhaps they didn't know you had to dismantle, perhaps burn down a dysfunctional house to build a more beautiful edifice. I love my brother and I respect his respect for his own vision, his critical eye, and his audacity. His body of work is now his edifice. His clubhouse still stands. His vision is the possibility of what we can be as Americans, as humans, civilization and humanity. His critical eye is how we drag that vision kicking and screaming into reality, wrestling with the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And his audacity, our inspiration to question, demand, act, even when others disagree. John is a math artist, and as such, he is also a bridge builder, in that at the heart of his enterprise, he sought to bridge math and art, to bridge the principles of the universe with the poetry of humanity to build a better world, to build a better clubhouse that we all could live in. For me, he lives because of his clear vision, critical eye, and sheer audacity. I could go on, but I won't. We can continue this conversation elsewhere, and we will. But today we will miss him. But we have his work. So thank you, Sarasota.
John was my friend, and he was my teacher. John taught me a little bit about perspective from a whole different way. The songs that you heard, the renditions of I Wish I Were in Dixie. I'm a Florida girl, born and raised here. And hearing John's music, I Wish I Were in Dixie. In Dixieland, I'll take my stand. And that's where we are here today. I'd like to introduce a friend and a teacher of John's, Gail Fulton Ross.
Okay. Can you hear me? It feels like that's far away. Okay. I've got to get my notes, or else I can't see this. I know Frank is over there laughing now. Okay, here we go. John was not an artist of this empire. He was a cultural warrior who used his intellectual genius and brave heart as weapons. Math, language, and people were his passion. We live in a time where the brave heart feels helpless and the strong are weak. They don't see a way out of the darkness, so they fall to their knees. Not John. He was a hero. He wanted us to be heroes. I wish we could have kept him here longer. John felt it was a human obligation to lift each other up. John was urgent and patient. He was brave, he was strong. See, he wanted to save somebody, and then he wanted us to save somebody. He wanted us to be free of hate and fear. John Sims was a cultural warrior who stood up. When I met him, he was barely 30. He'd already made up his mind, and I agreed that we were facing a humanitarian crisis, not a war. There is a difference. A humanitarian crisis creates neighbors rather than enemies. It creates an environment of caring, compassion, regard, empathy, and helpfulness towards each other. John wanted to reaffirm the value of every human being he met. He didn't mind if he lost blood on the way to salvation. He was determined to fight with all the strength he had until he died. He did what he could while he could, for us all. He walked with his face turned to the sun, weight on his shoulders, eyes in the back of his head just in case. I love you, John. And I will miss you while I spend the rest of my life keeping my promise to keep on keeping on. Art is long and life is short. It really, really is. Rest now in peace, love, and power, my art son.
I came here for a teaching appointment at Ringling School of Art and Design. Now it's called Ringling College of Art and Design. Yeah, came down here in the late 90s. I think my art process incorporates conceptual art, writing, performance, activism. It's part of a system of expressions and investigations that kind of interface with my creative expression. Performance has a very important and critical component to my work. Because the work is so conceptual, the performance provides a way, a mechanism to reach a bigger audience, to reach emotionally, to reach kind of in a social context in terms of human stories, and to be able to reflect that into a performance space. It allows for a kind of human reception of the work, which I value very, very much. So so the idea is to sculpt ideas in a conceptual space and figure out how to basically bring them forth on a platform that can engage the human story. And the human story plays out best, very often, in most powerful ways through performance. So I have three major groups of work: the mathematical artwork. I also have the political artwork dealing with the Confederate flag, iconography, and then also some time-paced work. But the math art, for instance, I created a character called Johannes Courage Schwarzenstein, which is Afro-German Jewish math art poet. And I performed this math art manifesto through the German language, through this performance of this character that I created. So that is much more interesting to hear this manifesto through the presentation of this created character. And it's a video presentation and it's translated, so now you have to pay attention to the translation if you don't know German, right? So you have to pay the text with the actual performance of this character. It gives you a different kind of entry into a certain kind of manifesto, a math art manifesto.
Der Kreis vom Punkt, die kreisförmige Bewegung in der perfektionierten Bahn, die Geometrie demokratischen Wachstums im quadratischen Weg. 3,1415926. Zeige deine Farbe, zeige dein Gesicht, zeige deine Seele. In einem abgesteckten Muster von Komplexität, in Basis 2, schwarz und weiß, in Basis 3, rot, weiß und blau, auch rot, schwarz und grün, in Basis 10, Als Gegenteil, als Schwestern in Kleidern, wir bezeugen Quadratur des Kreises, die Kreisförmigkeit, der Rechtwinkligkeit und assoziative Dualität von Einheit. Das Quadrat
I'd like to say John was before his time, but I think John was here just at the right time. I'd like to introduce now Bob Holman.
Praise, all praise, John Sims, Praise Day poem. And of course, it's also Pi Day today. So I hope you all get you some. I run the Bowery Poetry Club in New York, and John was our artist in residence and did his first New York show there. His inspiration is still flowing. This last time I saw him was in November when he came up to New York with a bunch of you folks from Sarasota and introduced everybody around. It was for the launch of the magazine, A Gathering of the Tribes, the Black Lives Matter issue, edited by Ishmael Reed. John helped Danny Simmons edit the art. It's a poetry and art magazine. And it was an exciting and thrilling night, and was surely the opening of so many more exciting and thrilling nights, only to be cut short just a couple of weeks later. I don't know what to say. So I wrote a poem, because that's what poets do. And praise poems is what comes about when somebody you know and love isn't there anymore. This one is published in the latest edition of the Brooklyn Rail, which also is a zine that John was did a lot of work with, had the cover of, and his interview with Kay Prevolet is a gorgeous thing. And he also did a lot of their podcasts. So let's praise John. Praise, all praise, John Sims, praise poem. Well, when he walked in, you knew it. He's well over 6 foot. Does anybody know exactly how tall he was exactly? Was it 6'4"? With ferocious soul and hair to match? It was John Sims. John Sims, polymath, artist, also actual mathematician, activist always, sweet and gentle man, died unexpectedly over the holidays. His many projects will live on, of course, or let's hope they do. Detroit native, central to Sarasota cultural scene, artist in residence at the Ringling, taught at Ringling College, the math art course he created, still part of their curriculum. He'd make several swings through New York each year, filling us up with his latest news, his latest ideas, his latest projects. Now, the Confederacy projects were always in movement. When John said he was going to hang a Confederate flag in his show, he did exactly that, in a noose, on a scaffold. Various flags in varying configurations, recoloration, proclamation, divisions of America, square roots, a quilted manifesto with Amish quilters, rhythm of structure, more math, more art, the LP Afro-Dixie remix, 13 tracks of Dixie in genres of black music, spiritual, blues, gospel, jazz, funk, funk, calypso, samba, soul, R&B, house, hip-hop, lighter notes by the great late Greg Tate. There was the Square Root of Love performance he did at La Mama Theater with Karen Finley, which was set to play Lincoln Center. There was the Geometry of Times exhibition at the Bowery Poetry Club. There's Pie Day, his creation. He loved pie, where pie is celebrated an alternative Valentine's Day. Happy birthday, John. During residency in Charleston 2021, in the middle of the night, 2 cops enter his studio where he's asleep, demanding with guns drawn, "What are you doing here?" handcuffing John, who was working on a film, The Near-Death Residency, when he died. The sudden way he passed, the way word spread about his death. First, he was dead, then he wasn't, then no news anywhere, and then he was dead again. Friends started calling. Danny Simmons calls with news, then says, "Hold off posting because..." No real because. Danny was art editor of the new Gathering of the Tribes Black Lives Matter issue, edited by Ish Reed, with John Sims on the cover. Yes, John himself staring out at you from behind a COVID mask with BLM sharpied on it. Sims smack in the middle of the cover of Tribe 16. John was intent on getting his art into the hands of the people, and here he is. A self-portrait of John Sims, so we can remember right now. During this flood of death texts and rebirth phone calls, Reverend Billy Talon rang, his voice a huge question mark full of disbelief. John had just visited Billy's Church of Stop Shopping that Sunday. The next night, he's at the party for Tribe 16 at the Bowery. He'd been on the Revs podcast. This couldn't be true, right? What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? I spoke with Karen Finley, who truly just didn't get it. John Sims is not dead. We agreed. Not Mr. Full of Life. Spirit ain't ever gonna get gone. Finally, Jackie Patron called from Sarasota. I just met her with John at that Black Lives Matter event. She'd been part of his posse. She had the info. Yes, John was dead, found lying on his back on his neighbor's lawn, December 11, 2022. Probably a heart attack. He was 54. John Sims, no pressure cooker, one of a kind. He and I would bemoan what had happened to the word unique with the advent of very unique. Unique, we reckoned, is more unique than very unique, because unique is one of a kind. Any adjective, adverb would diminish that quality. It would compare that which cannot be compared. No comparison. Unique as John Sims.
Twisting and turning, lighting and burning, mapping the emotional physics latent in the crevices of a physical reality that we call home. And in this home burns oxygen for light, for warmth, for the strange attractor called love. As a system of intersecting impulses and desires, both abstract and physical, both rational and irrational, both relational and singular. As a force of the mind where ideas and principles consecrate secret marriages. As a force of the body where serotonin and dopamine conspire. As a force of the spirit, an antidote for iniquity where heavenly forces inspire. The unification of these fields of forces as a godly opportunity for transcendence and grace, and the foundational elements of humanity. But to unpack the magic of this force, we must examine its product space, the geometry of its language, the rhythm and structure of its path, its elements, its parts and components. We find the root. And in the product space is a list of factors where there exists a square root, a reflection of you and me, and all our combinational occurrences. And this root, like square root of one square root, and simply and magnificently love.
Torcendosi e rigirandosi, illuminando e bruciando, mappando la fisica emozionale, nascosta negli anfratti di una realtà fisica che chiamiamo casa. E questa casa brucia ossigeno per illuminare, per riscaldare, per questo curioso attrattore chiamato amore, amore. Come un sistema di impulsi e desideri che si intersecano, astratti e reali, razionali ed irrazionali, relazionali e singolari, come una forza della mente, dove idee e principi consacrano matrimoni segreti, come una forza del corpo, dove serotonina e dopamina cospirano come una forza dello spirito, un antidoto per le ingiustizie, dove forze celestiali ispirano. L'unione di questi campi di forza è un'opportunità divina per trascendenza e grazia e gli elementi fondanti dell'umanità. Ma per scoprire la magia di questa forza, dobbiamo esaminare lo spazio che produce, la geometria della sua lingua, il ritmo e la sintassi del suo percorso, i suoi elementi, le sue parti, le sue componenti, e troviamo la radice. E nello spazio prodotto, una lista di fattori dove esiste una radice quadrata, riflesso di me e di te e di tutti i nostri eventi combinatori. E questa radice, come la radice quadrata di uno, è semplicemente e magnificamente amore.
John Sims had another friend. She's not able to be with us tonight, but she sends these remarks. Her name is Ella Miller Toy. John's passion for quilt making led him to the door of Alma Sue's quilt shop in 2003. There, he met proprietor Ella Miller Toy, a member of Sarasota's quilters community and a trained biologist and chemist. Ella shared that John walked into the shop asking for help to make a pie quilt. One quilt led to a body of 13 math quilts, finished over a period of 7 years. Artist Amy Sherrill helped John sew 3 quilts, the tops of them, over the course of that time. For 20 years, Ella and John worked together on his quilts and then his Rhythm of Structure project. Next, we're going to have some tributes. And I can only say that as a journalist, meeting John Sims and having conversations with John took journalism to another level. This man was just absolutely, normally people call me and say, how can I prepare? Whenever John called me, I said, John, how can I prepare to meet with you? Thank you.
Dear John, August 25th, 2021. I'm pleased to inform you that the Multicultural Health Institute, MHI, has selected you to be one of its 2021 Champion Awardees in recognition of your long-standing support of MHI and 25-year record of delivering impactful health education, awareness raising, and advocacy for underrepresented communities. In addition, we wish to recognize your strong and visionary work as an arts activist over a similar time frame, often a lone, courageous voice speaking uncomfortable truths, dedicated to your authentic craft. As a 2021 Champion Awardee, we invite you to be our guest at our 25th Anniversary Fundraising Celebration to receive your Champion of Arts Award under the theme, Blue Zone Healing Around the World. Yeah. That was a great moment, and I'm glad we had that, John. I'm glad we did that little film thing together and a bunch of interviews and a lot of projects and plotting and planning and sharing and dreaming and hoping and to see you as the artist in residence at the Ringling Museum, the top of your game, marching in the Pi Day Parade in San Francisco. I am just glad to have borne witness to your incredible rise and ability to fully manifest your many, many gifts. I know that my mom, my sister, my family, my daughter, we cherished you and really, really happy to know you and pleased to see your success. Miss you, my comrade, my soul brother, my birthday almost twin. What am I going to do on Valentine's now with no square root of love moments? Guess we'll just have to all keep remembering and savoring the incredible legacy that you leave for us all. Thank you.
It's not so much the shock of John's sudden departure that has me in bits. It's the fact that beyond being a brilliant mathematician and a writer and an artist and a critical thinker and a musician and a linguist and a teacher and a friend and a brother and a cousin and a partner and a lover and all the things, the roles that all of us as adults in different ways fulfill. It's the fact that many of us have lost a really dear, beautiful, generous, kind, and loving friend. A true human being. I often say that when we're born, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're human. And John's humanity and sincerity and his personal integrity and his character was just beautiful. It was nice to see how shy he could be and gregarious at the same time. It was nice to see how excited he would become about different ideas and how wonderful it was to be able to have a friend that it was intellectual jazz in terms of ideas, and call and response was ever present.
You know, it's taken me several days to talk about John Sims. You know, he was a dear friend of mine. He was somebody that I can confide in with all the political issues going around and all the daily issues that we were all facing and still are. John would come into the bar and we would discuss the daily issues of what was happening in the world. A few times I would get in trouble and almost asked to leave my own restaurant. But John always had a saying. He said, "George, just take it easy. These people have to come up to breathe someday." So, you know, we spent a week and a half with John over in Tuscany where We just had a great time. John was developing the square root of love, finding a new winery to make the wine. Him and the winemaker became great friends, spent hours together talking about art and daily issues at hand in our country and over in his country. John was just a real dear friend of my family, and even my son Charlie, who's 10, was just telling me the other night how sad he was, and but also happy that, you know, he had spent a week with John over in Tuscany and had some great memories that I hope that he carries through the rest of his life.
In the most direct way, oddly enough, from the math art point, you know, I did this notion of the square root of love, like what times what equals love. And also it gets you to think about love as the love of ideas, the love of objects, right? The love of people. It's different. You can love these things in very different ways. Love of ideology and politics, you know. And then what does that point to? Issues around commitment and focus and selflessness on some level. What does it mean when you love something? And what does it mean when I see someone who really loves the Confederate flag, right? What does that mean, right? And how do you have a discussion with that? And how can that discussion be subverted? And so the love I appreciate. So when I see someone who's convicted about anything, really, that's interesting to me. And that can be redirected. I believe that energy as a vector can be redirected in different ways. But the idea of having passion and focus and commitment, I'm drawn to that because I realize that for things to change and to connect and replicate itself over long periods of time, there is a sense of consistent attention that's necessary. And that for me represents a certain kind of love when you're committed to something and it becomes part of how you move through space, which is very different than superficial, in the moment, surface kinds of infatuations, but it's that kind of how do you move forward and you anticipate problems and you're able to like accommodate that because you're committed to that path. So it's that part of love that I try to convey with my own commitment to the work, right? And how I want that to inspire the folks who might also connect to my work in terms of, look, dealing with Confederate iconography or white supremacy. These are long-term things that in some ways require long-term attention, long-term care. And in some ways, it requires love. So that's what without calling it that, but that's the element of love that is so important. Being committed, being focused, and being reflecting and forgiving when necessary, and being, held accountable when necessary, so that you can do better, be better, and create a space that seems more just, more fair, more loving, and more embracing. Right. So I think that's a lot of the work, even the math art elements, even the political art elements. How do you find a path to connect us socially, right? That we care about each other, and we're allowed to care for ourselves and have that kind of mutual discussion between the individual to the community and the groups of community. And I think love is the thing that I see connecting us in real emotional ways beyond the money and the trading of objects and the trading of favors. It's that. So that's kind of, I think, the work. And I certainly think this Confederate flag project has definitely been done out of a sense of love for, the African-American experience, love of the American experience, and a hope that how we can move forward as a humanity, and how the art process can facilitate a greater love, passionate, and reflection experience to become the better parts of ourselves.
When I listen to John's voice and think about the depth of things that he had to talk about, the depth of things that he had to activate, when he talked about moving through time and space, I want to introduce Charlene Hunter Galt. Charlene is who I got the news from. She was at ABC 7 one morning getting ready to do a segment, and she was on the cell phone, and we were getting ready to go on the air. She was going to be one of our Suncoast women to be recognized. And she was on the phone, and she did like this, and she said, "Just a moment, I'm talking to the family of John Sims. He died." And I said, "John Sims." It did not even connect with me. And so someone in the station with me said, "John Sims, you know John?" And I said, "No, John Sims is not dead." Today I question that. Is John Sims dead? When I talk to John Sims, I can believe that he is with us right this moment. Charlene.
I told her I was trying not to cry, but she just made me cry. By now, you've heard wonderful stories about John, from John, his powerful, creative talent and being. But before I knew about any of that, I met John through Ed and Claudia Swan, mutual friends who introduced us, my husband Ron and me, to Sarasota. And then, some 11 years ago, he also introduced us to John. And on one occasion, they had us to dinner, along with our visiting daughter, Susan, who's an artist, who the Swans correctly thought would benefit from meeting John. And indeed she did. For not long after they met, John organized a show for the two of them at his home gallery. But he also mentored other young women artists, and he once introduced me to some of them during lunch at Rosemary and Thyme. Our owner is here, right here. He knows all about that because he probably paid for that lunch. But the reason we were at Rosemary and Thyme that day was so that I could share some of my history of overcoming challenges as a Black woman. Moreover, John's generous heart, head, and spirit, he clearly inherited from his wonderful mother, whom you've heard about so far, were in evidence when I got him to serve on the Clara Elizabeth Jackson Carter Foundation, of which I am president. In his 2 years on the board, John successfully helped provide thousands of dollars to organizations like Every Black Girl, or EBG, which started as a response to an assault in a classroom on a Black girl by a male police officer, which resulted in the girl and another classmate who stood up to her defense being arrested. EBG got the charges dropped, got the law amended, and also prevented the girl's education from being interrupted. Now, you know what happens when you go to jail. Everything gets interrupted. So this was huge. Another women's organization John got foundation support for was the Right Side of 50. Now, if John were alive today, I would say do it for the right side of 80, because some of us are 80. But this was an organization called the Right Side of 50. And it works with women from all ethnic backgrounds with problematic life situations, including being underemployed, and others who, as the organization states, have jobs but not careers. That makes a difference. And no surprise here, John also got funds for Maisha Moses and her organization, the Young People's Project. Some of you, and I hope all of you, have heard of Bob Moses. But that's why we have Black History today, so that if you haven't heard of Bob Moses, you can go to Black History and learn about him. We need our Black History people. At any rate, his daughter, Maisha, is carrying on his civil rights work, and dare I say, John's work, in her way. She's focusing on young elementary school students. Now that reminds me of John's sister, Angela, because his work, in her way, she's focusing on young elementary school students to improve their math skills and acting to remove systemic and institutional barriers to their own individual success and the collective success of their peers. And so, in his hometown of Detroit, John helped to support artists from there, as well as from the diaspora, because you know, when they come to America, they don't always know much about this country. So they provide that. And so I'm close to closing, because I want to be true to what I was asked to be, which is brief. Let me say in closing, I pray that John's pie wind will always be at our backs as we attempt to walk in his very large, and I mean very large, shoes. Now, several times today, I've heard people say that John has died, and they talk about his death. Well, my husband and I lived in South Africa for 17 years during the life of Nelson Mandela. And one of the things Mandela told me one day when we were having a little off-the-side talk was that the South Africans do not use the word death or dying or dead. They say transition, because as we know, I knew this was going to happen. Get it together, girl. We know from listening to John and to listening to all of his friends and family who loved him, that John is with us. And what Mandela taught me, President Mandela taught me, was that when people transition, their relatives and their friends, like all of you, talk to them when they have a problem. Because they believe, and you've heard what John stood for on so many levels, they believe that when they talk to that ancestor, the solution to their problem is going to come from him, or if it's a her. And so today I'm asking, as we remember our beloved friend, that we think of him having transitioned, and you know what he stood for. So when you have a problem, talk to him like I do. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Melanie Lavender, and I'll be introducing our musical acts on this part of the program. I'm also a spoken word artist, born and raised right here in Sarasota. John gave me my first opportunity to perform on a stage at his proper way to hang a Confederate flag in 2006. And from there, life has been great. So our next person to come to the stage is Twinkle.
I love John like everyone else here, and it's hard to sing when you're emotional, but over these decades, the one thing I wished the most whenever I would talk to him or see him is that I had glasses with video camera 24/7 so that anything he said was captured for all time, because he always was amazing, as everyone knows here. It's not only a great loss for us, I think it's a great loss for the planet, but I love what she said. I don't believe in death now anymore either, because I can't picture that mind, that heart. That didn't go away. That is here. It's somewhere. Anyway, I love you, John. And he called me and asked me to please sing this at a gallery when he wanted me to sing Dixie. And so then we did it on the album, and he had all these wonderful musicians. He was just an extraordinary individual. And I didn't mean to talk before I sang. I'm sorry. I was born here also. Sarasota is one of those places where if you get to meet somebody like him, you just can't believe that the world has put you in front of this person and now you're friends. It still blows my mind. Anyway. Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton. Good times there were not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Oh, in Dixieland where I was born, and on that cold and frosty morning, look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Oh, I wish I was in Dixie, hooray, hooray. In Dixieland, I'll take my stand to live or die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Oh, I wish I was in Dixie. Hooray, hooray. In Dixieland, I'll take my stand to live or die in Dixie. Away, away, away down south in Dixie. Away, away, away down south, my friend, I'll miss you, but someday we'll be together again.
Dixie is a powerful statement. As you can see, John worked on reclaiming it as our own. In 2006, I wrote a piece, and I'm just going to do a small portion of it for you guys, called Dixie. Sing that old Dixie song, y'all, is all I can hear whenever I see that flag. The mighty South is what they cried, never thinking they would lose, not wanting to change their honorable way of life. Why would they want to change? Living in the big house, reaping the rewards of the land, hunting, laughing, and drinking while having a good meal with your good Christian family. But Dixie had a little black secret in its backyard, and that secret is all I see whenever you wave your flag. All I see is the beatings. All I see is overworked and underfed slaves plowing your land, planting your seeds in the bitter cold and the blistering heat. Not allowed the simple rights of a man, not knowing freedom but always dreamed about it. Can't speak freedom cause y'all get hanged about it. That's what I see whenever you wave your flag. That's what I see whenever you wave your flag. John was a supporter of many women in many forms of the art itself. Our next speaker, Reverend Billy, is going to give you a taste of what his sermon is all about.
Earth-alleluia. That's what, when John came into our lives in New York City, we were shouting. And we continue to, but I think that he supplemented this activist church we were creating from people from all kinds of backgrounds gathering together to defend the earth. And he got us singing Love-alleluia as well as Earth-alleluia. And Life-alleluia. Somebody give me a Love-alleluia here today. Love-alleluia. One more time, Love-alleluia. Amen. Now, Charlene just told us to talk to him. Talk to John. I feel the need to talk to John right now. Because one thing that he would want us to be is realistic. We live in a moment when racism is, it's on the rise. It's being shouted in Congress. Racists are just open right now. It's like carrying a gun in public. There are racists that are proud of it. And just at that same time, Love-alleluia, Earth-alleluia, the people that are killing the earth are proud of it. John would talk to us about the big banks who openly invest in fossil fuels, putting the toxins into the air, impacting people of color and the poor, people of the global south. So I think John would want us at this moment. He would say, I know you love me and I love you. And I know we'll keep talking to each other. But a part of that talk has to be being realistic about what is happening right now. And we're going to leave this beloved gathering, which we will remember. Don't you feel that? This is so magical. We will remember this for the rest of our lives. It's a way for us to talk to John. We're entering into this time of talking to John. But we're walking into racism and earth killing. And it is open. And it is well-financed. And they're coming right at us. And John teaching us the square root of love. John teaching us how to use science, the beauty of math, numbers, pi, quilts, music, old racist anthems. I mean, this isn't John amazing? There was nothing he wouldn't use for love. Love-alleluia. Love-alleluia. from up there, just beneath the clouds where his mind resided, he would just see things he could use. And we will need to do that now, people. Each and every one of us has to be so creative right now. Because the hate is so organized, so implacable. It is art forms being adopted for hate. It's financial institutions, it's economies, it's languages. So much of what we see John Sims claiming for love is the kind of thing that is being claimed right now for hate. They're artists of hate. Feels a lot like Nazism right now. Feels a lot like plantation culture. It's the revival of the colony. We're at a dangerous moment. You all know this. Here I am shouting at you. You all know this. You know, maybe John would be talking kind of gently about it. He'd be saying, well, we're in big trouble, and we have ways to open it up. We have ways to talk to that person, that hater. And that hater has a gun. That hater will trash our most beloved institutions. That hater will kill democracy. That hater will come into our yards, come into our homes, point fingers at us and call us incredible things. You eco-terrorist. And then he'll remind us about how music slows police down. He'll start telling us about how trance states are real, that you have real mechanical, like scientific ways of slowing down hate. And then you can go in there and start having a conversation. We can talk to John, and John will say, all right, now, talk to that hater. Find a way to talk to that hater. Sing, dance, do it. Just bring everything you can of your humanity to that hater. Because right now we have to save our earth, our place, our communities. Love will be tested. John tells us we can love. Love-alleluia. Love-alleluia. Somebody, love-alleluia. Thank you.
Now, y'all, I am a country girl, and when you grow up in church, you get that call and response type of thing. So can we get another love-alleluia? All right, love-alleluia. Okay, y'all feeling the love. Our next speaker is Macy. She is a part of the West Coast Black Theater Troupe and also a Booker VPA graduate and a performer. We welcome to the stage Macy.
Hello, everyone. Before I sing, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the key word of the night, which is love, which is what John Sims clearly had a lot of. You guys are all proof of that. A couple of things that he talked about in terms of the elements of it that really stuck with me was definitely forgiveness and grace and commitment. In a world where there is a lot of hate, I think it's really important for us to use our gifts, everything that we can to overcome that, to look beyond that and see what the world needs to become a better place. And as I sing this song, I just ask that you keep that in mind. Amazing grace shall always be my song of praise, for it was grace that bought my liberty. I do not know just how he came to love me so, but he looked beyond my faults and he saw my need. I shall forever lift my eyes to Calvary, to view the cross where Jesus died for me. How marvelous the grace that caught my falling soul. He looked beyond. He looked beyond. He looked beyond my faults and he saw my need. Thank you.
John was a man of peace. He was in all kinds of spaces, and politics was one of them. He certainly knew that we all had to talk. I'd like to introduce now Mayor Dennis Archer.
My name is Dennis Archer. I am a former mayor of the city of Detroit, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art. We certainly hope that you have enjoyed this evening celebrating the life and contributions of one of America's unique and talented artists, John Sims. From the speakers this evening, we have learned that John, during his life, always found time to share his work with museums and art shows throughout the world. We also learned that John shared his vision with other artists who sought advice, insight, and help. John also helped to showcase and promote other members of the art community. To those who spoke this evening, thank you for your thoughts and respect for John Sims. To the family of John Sims, we were grateful that you were here with us this evening. I saw the memorial that took place in Detroit. It gave us insight into John's growing up in Detroit. And from those who knew and loved him first, we learned that John dared to be different. He had, as his brother shared, 3 qualities: vision, a critical eye, and audacity. Thanks to Nate Jacobs, West Coast Black Theater Troupe, and to the other outstanding folks who gave us their voice and made us feel good about being here tonight. They were just what we needed to make this right. What you did not see this evening was a core group of people who served on a committee that helped to plan this evening's tribute to John Sims. They knew John, respected and loved him as a person. Some benefited from his willingness to share his talent, helped some to make some important decisions, and just plain wanted to help in planning this event. We were led and guided by an outstanding person by the name of Elizabeth Dowd. She is the Curry Coleman creator of performance programs. Now I would like to invite you to join everyone at a reception made possible by a great friend. And so, George Armstrong, I'm going to ask you to stand up and turn around so that we can say thank you. George and John Sims were very great friends. They shared a lot together. They worked on a few projects together. One was wine, and they had a lot of interesting and thoughtful conversations. And thanks to Rosemary and Thyme, we're going to have something wonderful to eat. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. You do us an honor, but better yet, John, I know you're glad they came. Thank you very much.